Well, Jack, thanks so much for joining us today. It's good to catch up.
Thanks, mate. It's good to see you.
Yeah, indeed. Everybody's working from home at the moment, but working from home means different things to different people. Not everybody has the same setup, and then the implications is not just how productive is one person or a team, but also the mental well-being aspect of this, which is was becoming more to the fore anyway in terms of holistically looking at buildings and marketing space for tenants. Do you think that sort of the well-being aspect now will come even more to the forefront?
Yeah, 100%. It's 100%. I mean, it's so the view that's coming out of a lot of our occupiers internally is that well-being and health will be very, very important parts of their occupation going forward. To the point of again, it's mental to be even talking about this in some ways, but like the effects of stress on your arrival to work. So if you have a long commute, do you need a certain period of time to decompress because your stress levels have been increased by a tube journey, a commuter train journey? It comes into what we think of, right, man? I cycle to work because it's a really good decompression, right? So maybe people will start having to do that more rather than going on tube trains that stresses them out. And then once they arrive in the office, the other thing that I had a presentation on a few weeks ago was air quality and how internal air quality can be worse than external air quality at the moment, and therefore should that be improved to help people's well-being and productivity? Well, it just makes sense, doesn't it? Yes. So I think those sort of things are here to stay. And I would have said prior to the last downturn, the financial crisis time, most sustainable, well-related things would have just been jettisoned in a way that it was not really given much truck by companies and occupiers, and therefore cost saving was more important. I really think that it's so entrenched in our society and our working practices now that in fact it'll just be, but those companies will just labour it more and really focus on it because staff have become so important.
I wonder now if, because of all the reasons that you just mentioned, if people start to sort of issue public transport like buses and tubes over health or hygiene reasons, whether more people will start to cycle or run into work, or will people, the other flip side of it, as we're starting to see, I think, in countries like China, where some people say, actually, I feel more comfortable driving into work, whether, how that might pan out in terms of the competition, in the wellness space, who actually has the rights to that? Is this wellness space going to grow? Does it start becoming less of a basement feature, more of a ground level feature? What's your thoughts on that?
I think so. So interestingly, one of the key considerations in the sort of CBRE view of planning for the return to the workspace is three key words really: safety, health, and well-being. Right. So safety, I get from a travel point of view, but the health and well-being is obviously the major things to pull out of those three words, and that fundamentally suggests to me that health and well-being end-of-trip facilities will have to be improved and expanded where possible. Obviously we're in a position where, we've been shoehorning cycle racks and showers into tiny little areas in the basement, as best we can to sort of future-proof buildings. But I think that's going to have to expand. There will be many more people, certainly during the summer periods in the finer weather, who will decide to sort of actively get to work as opposed to sit sedentary on a train or a tube carriage. It will just happen.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting to see as well, isn't it? This whether all the things you're saying means that there will be a call for almost like a different level of higher level of amenities and different service offerings within the space that maybe haven't been looked at before, and that might feed into hygiene. There might be things like hand sanitizers just being absolutely standardized for all elements of the building, or it might be, as you say, the sort of the wellness, the mental health aspects of things. Do you have spaces where people can recover either after their commute or even during the day? That might be the new thing that comes in.
I think the challenge is with end-of-trip facilities is seeing how in an uncertain market how landlords, developers can work out the monetization of the space. We've always talked about lettability, which is pretty difficult to quantify, but if you have best-in-class facilities, the sort of thought process is therefore you will let faster and for a better return and to better quality occupiers. The wellness piece, you guys work on 22 Bishopsgate. It's interesting to say that was starting to be done already with their wellness floors, with their sort of places that you can go and energize. I think that will become, whilst they're a sort of a thought leader in that one, we will probably see that becoming more and more the norm, certainly on bigger buildings and bigger schemes.
Yeah, it also seems to speak to the idea of tenant user experience as well, doesn't it? And I wonder if you think that tenant user experience is as sort of a all-encompassing idea as that is, but whether that and different aspects of it will become more to the forefront now, sort of in the post-COVID-19 world.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, I think it will. I think CBRE, we're certainly gathering our European occupier study information at the moment, but and the view being that corporate headquarters are here to stay, but there's no doubt that the modern workspace is going to change, and the occupier and the employee will want a greater feeling of welcome and belonging, and I think one thing that will remain, and one thing that this sort of situation has really highlighted for me particularly, but is the importance of workspaces, like the importance of being able to collaborate, being able to be around your colleagues, who frankly you spend most of your time with anyway, so they become your pals, and working on the interactions. Now, it will be interesting to see what the balance of that is going forward. I think for people's mental health, that will be important to get back to offices in some capacity. Certainly, I mean, short term, who knows when that will be, but in the medium term. We talked about flex spaces before. One of the interesting things I was thinking about is, will there be, in terms of locationally, will occupiers start thinking, well, actually being near a fitness centre or a clear, place of work and exercise will be more important than maybe being near a transport hub? Or will they try and develop areas where fitness centres are just a matter of course in larger schemes and be nearer a transport hub? Those sort of factors will become really important, I think.
Indeed, our fitness centres or traditional fitness centres like gyms actually a bit of a redundant or an old-fashioned model now. If people start to commute more actively, and of course the other big thing, as I'm sure you've seen now in the press, is people are starting to question whether, particularly as we do move back into some form of normality, to be in places where you are confined in such a space, sharing equipment, and the issues of sanitisation there. I mean, one thing I think we've all seen in the last 4 weeks or so is that more people are out there jogging and cycling and actually just making use of the natural surroundings to get fit. And it does raise questions about, do you need that gym membership anymore?
Mate, you're speaking to someone that hasn't had a gym membership. I mean, I know I hardly look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but yeah, outdoors free, right? And this time of year, amazing. I'm out every day, making sure you get your exercise and trying to get some headspace. I've always found being cooped up in a gym, and I find the same with the spinning studio as well. I've been to a spinning studio recently, and I just find it a bit claustrophobic. Now, I am one of those people that still cycles throughout the winter. Not typical, I feel. I think there's got to be some capacity for exercise in those winter months. But you're right. I mean, the whole model of getting as many people into an area close to each other, touching the same things, has got to be looked at. And again, I keep saying it, in the medium term, for sure.
One thing that will be interesting to see is whether this idea of the almost paranoia now that people have around hygiene, sanitation, everybody's very vigilant, dare I say paranoid at the moment. How long this may last, if this is a longer term thing where, as we move back into the workplace or into this normal life again and routines, that people say, I actually need to I need to keep distance in certain instances. I'm going to make sure things are clean and sanitized, and how that might impact our daily lives and obviously on the work that we do. So that's a really interesting one to see, isn't it?
I agree, mate. And actually, so CBRE did this thing called reopening the world's workplaces and producing our America and our US offices in early April. And one of the key drivers, right, is stakeholder engagement. So what I think will be really interesting is you might have a different view on re-entering the workspace than I do. So we're going to have to really engage all the employees, because there'll be different levels of anxiety about returning. I'm pretty relaxed about it, for example, but someone who sits in two bays down might be very worried about coming back into London. So that engagement will have to be done, and it will be interesting to see as we reoccupy pretty slowly, I would say, and gradually, what teams are treated differently, what individuals are treated differently. At what point does it get to a stage where the company says, look, it's take it or leave it time? Will that happen now? And they're the interesting things that will come out over the next 6 months, I reckon. As we
undoubtedly, and I know that you're a very optimistic chap as well, that there's going to be a lot of positives to come out of this as well in the long term.
Most definitely.
What positives do you see coming out of this from a work or CBRE perspective, and also personally as well, and how it might affect your day-to-day working life?
From a work perspective, my drive, you and I speak about this a lot, right? What's really important to me is rather than mental health, is physical health, in a sense of making sure that we cater for that in offices. I'm spending a lot of time at the moment talking to architects and finishing off schemes I'm working on, and being able to make that more primary than secondary to a lot of developers is going to be the sort of thing that I'm happy about in terms of change. I think that'll be wicked. I think we'll see London, I don't know if I think that's true, actually. I hope we'll see London morph into a more sort of active and more extrovert city, which would be great.
This has been a massive, almost social experiment, hasn't it? That's shown this can happen. We can do it. We can work more flexibly. And I think the big positive from that is it's a creative approach, isn't it? It shows that once you get out of this rigid way of working, well, actually, if we can do that, what else can we possibly do around working and team working and being productive?
Quite. And I have to say, it's one of those interesting things whereby more traditional companies have been forced to do this experiment. The likes of Google and Bloomberg and all of those sort of interesting, the Facebooks of the world have been doing flexible working for a long time anyway, right? You've got coders working at 2 a.m. in the morning because they prefer sleeping in the day. Fine, that's catered for. But the more traditional occupiers have always eschewed that. They've always said, "Oh no, look, it's you get in the office at 8 o'clock and you leave at 6. That's how it works." And I think that's now, it's being looked at, isn't it? It's being reconsidered. Is that healthy for a workforce? Not just physical but mental, but also in terms of efficiency levels.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jack, of course, we don't know how long this is going to go on for.
Mate, hopefully not much longer.
Judging by the state of our hair, I think
our barnets are in a terrible nick.
Yeah, I know the first thing that I'm going to do once this lockdown eases, and that's get a haircut. What about yourself? What's on the cards? What are you most looking forward to when you can return to some form of normality?
I mean, it's probably high on everyone's agenda, but mate, I just want to go and have a pint in the pub. It's an extraordinary thing. Because I don't go to a gym or anything, I'm pretty relaxed about that. My dream scenario at the moment would be to go for a long ride, even if that was to the office in my commute, and being able to go and have a pint with my friends and colleagues. My hair is in absolute state, as you quite rightly point out. So I imagine getting a haircut will be high on the agenda as well.
Well, listen, mate, thanks so much for your time and sharing your thoughts with us. It's been really insightful.
Mate, I hope it's been all right. It's been wicked to talk about it, actually.
Well, cheers, Jack. All the best. Look after yourself.
Dude. Appreciate your time, pal.